Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, folks. It's a pleasure to have you here for part 2 of the 6x9 belt sander rebuild. As I alluded to in part 1, I'm going to use this new piece that I've made here as part of a larger bracket assembly to hold the platform of the belt sander, and I will now show you what I'm going to do to the base platform in order to make this happen. As you can see, this is the base unit of the belt disc sander. The original bracket mounted on here in this fashion, and the belt unit mounted here. This particular piece here is to run another rod which mounts the original tilting table if you want to use it on the belt sander section instead of on the other side for the disc sander. The problem is they haven't designed it very well, and it doesn't locate in the correct position. It's absolutely useless and of no value. I've never used the platform on this side, which is part of the reason why I built my own table to use on this side of the belt sander. So what I propose to do here is to cut this section off through there where I've got it marked. Put a piece of steel across like there, like so. Mount the new bracket on this side, and then run another bracket on this side that will come up underneath the casting on the belt platform and give it a bit of stability. I'll also use this to remount my steel table that I have on the end, because it's also a bit of an issue with doing belt changes. I have to remove it to do a belt change because the bracket arrangement that I have stops you sliding the belts off, and I can incorporate an assembly to hold the table and also hold the belt platform so that there's only a small piece on the end to remove in order to do a belt change. So the first thing I might do is disassemble this unit, cut this off with a grinder, and see if I can somehow mount this base unit to the cross slide table on the drill press, and just run an end mill over the top of this and get it all flat, and maybe just give that a little bit of a clean up as well. You can see this whole thing. This is the treadmill motor that I installed on it years ago. The whole thing's going to have to be stripped down anyway, and when I do the rebuild, I will show you the ins and outs of the treadmill motor, how to build a cheap motor controller yourself, and how to get any machine like this into something that's a hell of a lot more usable by putting a variable speed DC motor on it. This is what came with the machine many years ago, and it's just an empty stand. Now I've since mounted that stand on some wheels just so I can push it around here in the shed, because the shed's not a massive shed. It doesn't have a lot of room, so anything that I can make movable, absolutely great. But it's a big waste of space at the moment. So what I plan on doing is I've just bought a metal drawer unit for putting a few tools and stuff in. It's only a cheap piece of junk. It's no more junky than this, and at least it'll give me a bit of storage instead of having just an empty piece of nothingness. I should be able to use it to store belts and bits and pieces associated with this unit. And I will also move the switch and potentiometer and the motor controller and everything into a better location that's more suited to the way the machine is set up now. Most of the time this is where I stand. I'm very rarely over the front here using the disc. I do occasionally, but even then it's not in a great position. The emergency stop knob is missing from here, so I will replace this switch at the same time and just use a plastic enclosure that I'll mount on the side of the new unit that I'm going to use there. You really have to have a good emergency stop. As you can imagine, getting caught up in a big belt sander, belt linisher, disc sanders, they're the type of equipment that will grab your clothing, grab your hair, grab your cuff of your sleeves, anything like that. And if you do get stuck in one of these things, they will just want to pull you in. So you need an emergency switch that you can operate with anything. It's got to be in such a position where if you can't get a hand to it, it's going to be okay. You can just kick it with your foot, bump it with your knee, push the machine into something to hit the switch, anything at all that will turn the thing off. So an emergency button is an absolute must on a piece of equipment like this. I've probably been a bit slack because it broke off quite a while ago and I haven't replaced it. This is a replacement switch that I've got here ready to go. You can see it's an exact copy of the original. These things have been mass produced in China and Taiwan for a very long time. These switches are also magnetic, which means they won't latch unless there's voltage applied to them, so that if there is a power outage, once the power is disconnected, the switch is unlatched, so the machine will turn off and then won't be able to restart when the power is connected. So if you have a machine like this, power goes off, you forget to turn the switch off, you go away, do something else, the power comes on and the machine starts running again. With this type of switch, that won't happen. They're only fairly cheap, these switches, 10, 15 bucks. And if I have any equipment that doesn't have magnetic switches, I will generally tend to put one in just for safety. How these work is you turn the machine on and then just drop the lid over like that. And what happens is if you bump that action will pushes the stop button inside the unit. So all you've got to do is bump it and she's off. Very easy to do. Like I say, you can bump it with pretty much anything. When I rewire all the electrical side of this thing, once I get the new base unit, I'll go right in depth into this with the motor controller, the treadmill motor conversion, and all that kind of stuff. But for now, I think I'll start disassembling this entire unit. I need to get this sorted before I finalise the bracket to hold the belt platform. Machine is now completely disassembled. I've just finished jigging up the base plate in the drill press. She's pretty much ready to go. She's nice and firm. I think I've got it as level and square as I can. I'm running a 12mm 4 flute carbide end mill in the drill press, and I'm running it about probably about 700 RPM. And what I'm about to do is I've already cut off this loop that was sitting on top of there with an angle grinder, and I'm now about to start cleaning it up with this end mill and bring it down to the same position of this. I'll probably skim across the top of this because it's it's not too bad, but it's a little bit iffy. It'd be good to just get them both right. So I'll take all this down and get it right and see how she looks. And there we go, folks. It looks like the mighty drill press has saved us once again. There it is. Very nice. Very nice indeed. So there you have it, folks, a bit of drill press milling goodness. What this gives me now is a position that I can then run a drill through and tap a hole into this and run this lower piece that's going to form part of the new bracket. Across like this, there's going to be another section that comes up on this side to give me the strong bracket that I need to mount the unit and also mount my big heavy table that I'm running on there. You can see the converted drill press does a pretty reasonable job to be able to use a 12mm end mill on cast iron. You know, it does the job. It's probably not the most accurate of mills, but for what I do, it is absolutely perfect for me. I don't have the bench space to have another mill, and yeah, it does the job. So any of you guys out there are capable of converting a decent sized drill press to be able to do a bit of milling, at some point in the near future, I will do a whole segment on the converted drill press, how I've done it, what areas need to be addressed, why it works, and all that kind of stuff. And believe me, there's nothing fancy about my setup. There's just a few solid principles that you have to follow to be able to do a reasonable job and do it safely, because safety is always a big thing. There are issues with using a drill press to do milling with along the safety side of it, but I'll cover that when I actually do it. So at this point, that's really awesome. I can progress even further now with my bracket. Now I've got an actual flat area I can sit the bracket on as I'm setting it up. I've now tapped this hole in the back of this piece here that we flattened off. These I've cleaned up these two pieces now. You can see the curves being done on there. I just did that with a belt sander, and all the mill scales been removed off these pieces. I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I feel like I've been slumming it. I've been using a 4-inch handheld grinder to clean all this crap up with, and I'm not happy. If this machine was running, I would have done it in no time flat, and it would have been a piece of piss. So what I'll do now, I'll clean these up with some acetone. I'll tack this corner together, like so. Get the belt platform mounted and start working on the bracket for this side. And there you have it, folks. And 2 becomes 1. Similar, but yet not the same. So now I can get this on the machine and start planning out the other side of this bracket here. I better get to it. I'm so glad that you're able to be here with me, folks, and share this deeply religious experience. Just moments ago, I had a tear in my eye. Yes, the resurrection of the 6x9 belt disc sander. As you can see, it's going quite well. The new plate is coming along quite nicely. The new stand is starting to take shape. There's nothing fancy about the new stand. It's just merely a cheap Chinese drawer unit with some good quality wheels fitted to the bottom. I have made an attempt to strengthen this up so it's able to handle the weight that's being mounted on the top of it. I've mounted some 20mm RHS 1.6mm box section in underneath the lip along the front here. Same along the back. And there's a piece of 20mm form ply mounted on top, all screwed through from underneath, and some angle over the edges. And as you can see, that gives us a nice strong top, well and truly capable to handle the weight of the 6x9 disc belt sander and whatever else we happen to mount on here as well. These drawer units should come in quite handy for all sorts of accessories for this piece of equipment and whatever else I can throw in them. You can see there the new bracket arrangements coming along quite nicely. I fitted a couple of deep groove roller bearings underneath this section here. There's one here and one on the other side. And I've also rounded off this casting on the belt platform. It was roundish to begin with, but not to a point where it was usable for what I'm about to demonstrate. When the nuts are loosened off slightly, that sandwich this unit together here with the slots, you're now able to rotate the table very easily and very freely, because it's sitting on these two bearings. As I said, one here, one on the other side, and it just spins on the bearings now. Very simple. 2 threaded holes and put a bearing on there. You don't get much simpler than that. I will be putting another couple of bearings on this side as well, which will work to take the weight of this side of the machine. And it'll also make it quite easy to do the belt changes, as I mentioned earlier. The reason the machine is supported only on one side as it comes from the factory is so that your average Joe can just slide the belts off from this side. The only other support on the front of the machine is on the same side as this, and if you're putting anything heavy on there, you can really see it's all start to flex and, you know, not be a real great thing. At this point, I think I'll change the mounting position for the table that I welded up. Because I now have this section here, I think I will put some plate across this and then make a mount so that the table is permanently mounted in that position there, and have another movable stop for when you're using the table as a linisher. And it'll also take all the weight off this. So far so good. Waiting on a few more bits and pieces and a little bit more work to do, but it is coming along nicely. Well, that turned out pretty good, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pretty happy with that. Not bad at all. I'll take this back over to the machine now and reassemble it and work out how we're going to mount the table. This is just a piece of plate that I had sitting around. By the way, it's gal, which kind of sucks. You really have to make sure you get all the gal off in the areas that you're going to weld. Some pretty toxic shit comes off the gal. You can see just outside of the heat affected zone is where I finished. So this has all been hit with a grinder with a flat wheel to remove all the galvanizing on both sides, so that the heat affected zone didn't run into the gal, because it starts letting off some pretty bloody toxic fumes. And I don't have a fume hood here in the shed. I just weld up on the bench with the door open. But yeah, not a big fan of welding the gal stuff, but you use what you've got, you know. If there's something sitting in the corner that's going to work, but you got to grind it up a bit, you know, you just tend to do it, don't you? Anyway, it's all good. We'll refit him back on the machine and work out what we're going to do with this table. Another quick little job I might do, folks, while I've got the machine in this position. There are 2 bolts here that you lock and unlock to rotate the machine through the horizontal and vertical planes. They're a little bit of a pain because you can only get an open ender on them. You can't actually get a ring spanner on because there's not enough clearance underneath. It's just a minor little task I just thought I might do while I've got it in this position. I'll just use one of these. It's just like a finger sander attachment that goes onto a 4-inch grinder. I've got, like most people, I've got probably half a dozen of these old 4-inch grinders that I never use anymore because all my stuff's all battery now. Over the years, I've just been thinking of different uses, different pieces of equipment I can make out of them. And what I find really handy is these finger sander attachments. You can buy them on eBay. They're cheap as anything. They just go onto basically any 4-inch grinder and turns it into a power file finger sander. I find them just very useful. A very handy and cheap tool to have around the workshop, when most of the time you're just paying for the attachment, which are cheap as chips. I know a lot of people have these old 4-inch grinders sitting around, and if you don't have one, you can pick them up for nothing almost nothing on the used market, because as I say, it's all battery stuff nowadays. So people just throw these things away. But there are other tools you can make out of them. Very handy indeed. Anyhow, let's get this nut and bolt out, and I'll grind a bit of a recess. See how that worked out. Can we get a ring spanner right now, ladies and gentlemen? Is this going to work? Oh, look at that. Works, ladies and gentlemen. Can't hope for any more than that. Yeah. Give me a ring spanner any day. Not bad, not bad at all. I might just pull a little bit this way, just to make it extra nice. But overall, that's pretty bloody good. Very happy indeed. And I think we'll call that one done. Oh, that's great. That's what you want. That's the other guy there. What I think I might do in this situation, I think I might lay the machine over. Just because it's not bolted down yet, and I'd hate for it to flip over and ruin some of this fine work. That is a much more comfortable position to work on this in. I'll leave a link in the description, folks, for these power file add-ons. Like I say, you can buy them out of China for bloody just about nothing. So yeah, they're not bad. That's looking pretty good. Let's see how we went. And we're on, ladies and gentlemen. We are on. That is all we need. That one as well. Yep. That is great. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another annoying little job out of the way. Which now brings us to the table mount. So now I have to work out how to mount this somehow onto this. Very interesting. You can see I had this set up so that these are the brackets mounted on here, and the whole thing swung forward with the table, but it did bugger you up for the belt change. So now that we have this piece down here, I think I'll just cut all those brackets off, mount it permanently in this position, because I really don't need it up there when I'm using the belt flat as a linisher. First thing to do, cut these brackets off. Alright folks, I think we'll call that episode 2 and make this the end of it. We're coming up to 25 minutes. You guys are probably getting quite bored with me just crapping on. So as always folks, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. I've just bought myself a new microphone, ladies and gentlemen, to try and improve the quality of the audio on my videos, because there's nothing worse than shitty audio, and I've noticed some of my audio is shitty. So hopefully having a microphone now is going to stop all the fade in and fade out from whenever I move away from the camera. At the moment I'm trying to save up for a new camera because what I'm using here is a piece of junk. And if you guys would like to help me out, that's absolutely fabulous. I'll leave a link to my Patreon and PayPal in the description. As always, thanks for watching the Aussie Shed. Pleasure having yous here, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye now.